Hello, and it is week 26 of my Healthy Happy Pregnancy video diary. I'm Amber from LoveFit, if you don't already know that. Today is just going to be a little bit of an emotional talk from me. When I first started filming this series, I said that it would be a combination of practical tips, of exercise demonstrations, nice stretches you can do, nutritional advice, as well as a personal account of my pregnancy. And that's not just a kind of, this is how I'm doing, but also just some of my experiences. Because I've been working in the health and fitness industry for 6.5 years now. And obviously I've been working specifically with pregnant women and postnatal women as my speciality for all of that time. But this is the first time I've gone through pregnancy myself. So I wanted to kind of share with you things that have maybe been a surprise, especially with regards to the information I've been given as a member of the general public, rather than somebody who already knows about pre and postnatal exercise and health. So yeah, I think one thing I maybe haven't done so far in these series, and it's the end of my second trimester now, so maybe it's a bit late to be conveying this, but I just wanted to share how much I feel really passionately about trying to help women have the best possible pregnancy, preparing them as much as possible for the birth and beyond, and how much that work really matters to me. And it really does. I've been so lucky to have some really good educators in my background and my training. I need at this point to do a little tip of the hat to both Kaisa Tuominen, who is the owner of a Fitness Integral in Spain, and she also has wonderful online apps as well that you can do. She is, you know, I would go so far as to say one of the world's leading perinatal and postnatal educators, along with the wonderful Jenny Burrell from Burrell Education, who is a bit more local to me in London. Both of these women are complete pioneers in the industry, and I've been really lucky to work under them, and that's really helped me. It's really inspired me. It's probably made me really passionate about this field. And I'm not trying to knock any other fitness trainers out there who are pre and postnatal qualified, but suffice to say that when I first trained as a pre and postnatal exercise instructor, what I learned on those base courses that are out there for anybody with a personal training qualification who can then go and become a pre and postnatal qualified instructor, you know, that was the first thing I did when I qualified. What you learn on that course is very prescriptive and very base, as I say, and actually really and truly not that useful when it comes to it. What both Kaisa and Jenny have taught me, along with lots of other reading that I've done and lots of the women that I communicate online in different networks and support groups, is taught me that you need to go so much deeper. You know, and I pride myself on having far more in-depth knowledge and hands-on experience and real nitty-gritty compared to somebody who just says, oh yeah, I've got a pregnancy fitness qualification. And through working with these amazing women, it's really inspired me and really got me passionate about how things ought to be and how other women should be feeling and what experiences they should have. So it's already taken me 4 minutes to get to this point, but I wanted to share with you a little experience that really shocked and surprised me. A couple of days ago, I started some pregnancy yoga classes, actually with a yoga birth instructor. And I have to say, I've been very pleasantly surprised with the kind of knowledge that the instructor has been imparting. You know, a lot of the stuff she says really resonates with me. It's not just been a bit of airy-fairy yoga for pregnancy. But at the end of the session this week, we were put into small groups and we were just having a little chat after the class. And I spoke to, there were two other ladies talking with me, one who's a bit further on in her pregnancy and another one who is just 20 weeks. And a couple of the things that she said really struck me. And I thought, my goodness, this is the common experience, I would imagine, because this young lady, it's her first baby, like most of the people in the class, like myself. But this young lady is clearly quite educated and bright. It came up in conversation that she has a job working for one of the big pharmaceutical companies on the science park here in Cambridge. So, you know, she's an educated, well-to-do sort of person. And the fact that she's at these yoga birth classes, which aren't cheap, they're quite a high-end group exercise program, is another sign, you know, that she's from a certain level in society, dare I say. So this is an educated, bright young woman. So it's nothing to do with her kind of personal status. And yet she said 2 or 3 things that really made me realise the lack of education to the general public, particularly for first-time mothers. And really the fact that until you get much later in your pregnancy, when you might have some antenatal classes, and even then I've had very mixed reviews. I'm still to go through mine, and I'm going in quite open-minded to see, you know, what I make of them. But even the people I know who've been through it, a lot of them have said that, yeah, it's pretty rudimentary education. So the first thing that the lady said to me, we were talking, the other lady said, I'm glad I started these yoga classes now, because I've done barely any exercise in my pregnancy and I feel really bad, but, you know, it's the new year and I feel like I should be starting, so I've joined these classes for the last, you know, couple of months of my pregnancy. What about you guys? And obviously I'm in a bit of a different situation there. It's quite funny. So I didn't say anything first. I let this other young lady talk. And she said, yeah, not a lot, but I'm a runner. And, you know, I've felt really good in my pregnancy. And although I'm a lot slower, and that happened quite early on, I've continued running. And I guess there's no harm in that. I mean, I don't think there's a problem with me running, is there? And the other lady said, well, I don't think so. You know, it's probably fine. Don't they say you should just carry on with whatever you did before? And of course, I'm sitting listening to this. Now, don't get me wrong, as I said, and if you refer back to my week 17 video, I talk about running during pregnancy and why it's probably not the best thing. So I'm not going to repeat myself, other than to say, I did obviously voice my opinion as a professional, but didn't say too much. But suffice to say, the issue is not with any danger to her baby. It's about her pelvic floor and the lack of knowledge around how that, you know, even if you feel great, and this woman had a tiny bump, barely perceptible at 20 weeks. So it's not like she's trying to run with this great big bump bouncing around out front, but there's a huge amount of pressure bearing down on her pelvic floor while she's running. And with all the hormonal changes as well, that's going to have an impact. And not least, people forget how much the pelvic floor plays a role during the actual birth. If your pelvic floor is weakened, then it won't act as a support. As your baby's head pushes down, your pelvic floor, if it's nice and strong, helps to turn the baby into the correct position for birth. So if you have a very weak pelvic floor before you've got to the birth, because you haven't done your exercises, because you've done lots of running and things that really weaken your pelvic floor, then it's going to take a lot longer for your baby to turn. And that's when sometimes people run into difficulties with their birth. So anyway, suffice to say, that was, you know, the first thing I thought, well, yeah, this woman, why would she know? But there's just, in the general populace, there isn't that much information around what you should and shouldn't do exercise-wise during your pregnancy. But then the second thing that really struck me more was when we were then discussing about where people were hoping to give birth. And this young lady said, oh, I definitely wouldn't do a home birth. I think somebody in the group mentioned they might want a home birth, and actually that was me. I'm still deliberating between a home birth and going to the birth centre that we have here in Cambridge. But she said, yeah, I mean, I don't want a home birth, so I'll just be at the hospital. And the other lady said, oh, are you looking to go to the birthing centre or to the delivery unit? And this young lady looked at her and said, oh, there are 2 choices within the hospital. I don't understand. And I then intervened and said, well, yeah, there's the delivery unit, which is actually within the hospital, but then there's also the birthing centre, which is attached to the physical building that the hospital's at on the same campus, but it's a birthing centre rather than a delivery unit. And she, at 20 weeks pregnant, so halfway through her pregnancy, had no idea that this existed. Somewhere along the line, you know, somebody ought to have told her this. I would have thought her community midwife or whoever her healthcare provider is, but apparently not. And again, maybe this is commonplace. I don't recall specifically having that explained to me. I just know it because I've got loads of friends who've been through this. You know, I'm well into my 30s, so a lot of my friends have had kids. A lot of my friends are older than me, so had kids a long time ago. Whereas this lady, I would guess, is in her 20s somewhere, so maybe she's the first in her peer group. And also because I've worked with these clients for 6.5 years, I'm used to hearing about different birth stories. Maybe if you're the first there, you don't. So maybe the midwife doesn't tell you that. And to me, that's a huge thing. Like, you should have these options given to you and have it explained. She didn't even know that there were two choices. She just thought it was hospital or home. And given that Addenbrooke's, which is our local hospital, is her nearest place to give birth, you would have thought she'd had those options. And then when I explained the two things, she said, well, what's the difference between them? And first and foremost, how would I know which one I want to give birth at? And I thought, my goodness, yeah, this is, as I say, a bright young woman who knows, you know, she's obviously intelligent, but she has no idea about what kind of birth experience she might want to have. So I explained, obviously, that the delivery unit is obstetrician and doctor led and is part of the hospital, whereas the birthing centre is midwife led. But again, she still said, well, how would I know what to choose? So I was trying to talk about, it depends on how your pregnancy's been, but also what kind of birth you might want to have. And if you're somebody who knows that you're going in wanting to have a lot of intervention, and that you're going to want drugs, or if you're booked for a C-section for any reason, then you're definitely going to be going to the delivery unit. Whereas if you're hoping for a more natural, non-medicalised birth, you'd probably be looking at the birthing centre. But yeah, my point being that I found it really astounding that she didn't know any of this. These options had not been presented to her at any point. And sure, when she goes to antenatal classes in another couple of months' time, hopefully she'll get some more information. But by then she's very close to her birth due date. So I just found it quite shocking. And also that she mentioned in the same breath that she hadn't really thought about the birth aspect, and that she'll just deal with it when it gets to it. She'd had no real concept of what it is to give birth. So yeah, I guess my point here is, you're probably wondering where I'm trying to go with this. All I'm saying is that I spoke to my husband about this, and he said, well, Amber, you know, it doesn't really matter. People have been giving birth in all different ways for millennia. And the fact is, she'll go to her NCT classes, and when she goes into labour, even if she has no clue about how or where she wants to give birth, you know, somebody will get her most probably to the hospital, and somebody will make sure that baby comes out safely and healthily. And if she and the baby are fine, does it matter that she didn't have these choices? She didn't have this knowledge. And yeah, I guess from the most base, crude point of view, no, of course it doesn't. I absolutely agree. I'm not saying that everybody has to give birth naked, hugging a tree, you know, surrounded by scented candles. I'm not saying that everybody wants that kind of birth at all. And no, you know, everybody's entitled to completely their own judgment on how they want to give birth. But I just think it's really sad that you can be halfway through your pregnancy and have no knowledge and no experience of all of this, because it's not commonplace. And I am not dissing the midwives or our wonderful NHS, because those women work tirelessly and they are working to a lot of tight schedules and a lot of red tape. So they don't have the luxury to give that much information to everybody. But the bottom line is, as a result of that, it's made me even more emotional and even more passionate about trying to help people, trying to give you as much information, because I think information is key. The more information you have, the more educated you are, the more you can try and make the choices you want and be armed with, and you can have your own questions as well. You can remain in control as far as possible. Now, for any pragmatists out there watching thinking, well, Amber, you haven't actually given birth yet and you have no idea, and actually you can have all the plans and desires you want, but at the end of the day, the choice might be taken away from you. I get that. I am completely open-minded that sometimes medical things do happen and you need, you know, things will go completely off-piste compared to what you had planned. But I just really want to help you and anybody else who's pregnant or had their baby to have the best possible experience, and to feel, I know it sounds corny, but to feel empowered and to feel like you've had a positive experience. And just hearing this other woman's kind of lack of education and lack of knowledge really astounded me. So rather than reading all the standard books out there, I can't recommend enough Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. That's Ina May Gaskin. It's, yeah, it's wonderful. I'm not going to say too much more because this video is already really long, but check it out if you want to get some proper birth experiences and somebody who's been there, done it, and delivered a heck of a lot of babies. And yeah, I am here for you guys. Please send me your experiences. Please ask me questions. I really want to help you all. And yeah, thank you for listening to this long, passionate video. Bye-bye.